The Wal Street Journal is reporting that Microsoft is ready to take this case with the FTC to the courts. And we have a few details about how they think, the Wal Street Journal thinks, they're going to defend themselves. Let's dive in right now. Thank you so much for watching my content, everybody. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. Thank you so much for watching. So we're going to dive right into this right now. This is saying that Microsoft prepares to go to battle with the FTC over the Activision deal. Saw this on Twitter from Sarah E. Needleman, who talks about how the $75 billion deal for Activision Blizzard is arguing that it is an underdog in video game development. Sort of an interesting stance. And somebody pointed out 69, not 75. That, as noted in the story, is how much Microsoft values the deal after adjusting for Activision's net cash. Otherwise, it's $75 billion. And if I didn't say it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell before we dive in. Diving in, though. So they're going to go to battle over this deal with the FTC and how they have sued to block. There's a lot of important context early in the article, so I started highlighting everything. I'm like, I'll just read most of it. So Microsoft is basically signaled that they're going to go to battle against the FTC, who has sued to block the deal to purchase Activision Blizzard. It's expected to argue that it is an underdog in video game developing. So I find that sort of interesting, and I think that's potentially phrased in a way where what Brad Smith has already said basically is that Microsoft owns 70% of the market, Xbox owns 30%. So that is how I imagine they would present that argument. So they've been talking about this for a very long time, saying that it wouldn't threaten competition in the industry because Microsoft trails rivals in video game consoles and has a limited presence in mobile game development. The company has also said it expects the industry to get more competitive in the future with the rise of cloud gaming. So Microsoft's whole stance is we're getting into this for mobile, and a lot of the concerns has been about cloud gaming from the regulars, or at least one of the smaller concerns. But that just seems sort of the future of the industry. It seems like it's going to be the future of the industry and where the industry is going. So it seems inevitable that that is going to be the case. Legal experts say that Microsoft will likely build its case around those talking points, as well as the fact that it is pursuing what is called a vertical merger, meaning it is buying a company in its supply chain as opposed to a direct competitor. That's really interesting, actually, because if you think about it, Activision supplies games to people. They're not a console manufacturer. They don't really have a platform. They're not buying Sony. Now, if Microsoft was buying Sony, that might be more of an issue. And Brad Smith, we talked about that yesterday. He's basically saying the deal is fundamentally good for gamers, good for consumers, good for game developers, and good for competition. Right? That's what he said at the company's annual shareholders meeting on Tuesday. We will have to present this case to a judge in court because this is a case in which I have great confidence. Microsoft does not think that they are going to lose this case. And as noted in the story, they have until Thursday. Microsoft has until Thursday to respond to the FTC suit filed on December 8th, meaning, hey, you're going to get some more videos from me once that is presented or at least made public. So the FTC is alleging that the deal is illegal because it would give Microsoft the ability to control how consumers access Activision games beyond the Redmond, Washington company's own Xbox consoles and subscription services. The company could raise prices or degrade Activision's content for people who don't use its hardware to access the developer's games, or even cut off access to the games entirely. The problem with that argument is they have extended a 10-year deal to Nintendo, to PC, and it's on the table for Sony. Sony won't sign it, though, because Sony wants Xbox to get all tangled up in this stuff. And if they sign for it, it makes it look like it should go through, right? They've already raised their prices to $70, so I don't think they're going to raise their prices again once the deal goes through. Any price raising, I guess, happens now before the deal closes so that they kind of don't have to do it again once it's gone through, or they don't have to sort of deal with that argument anymore in court. I'm curious if the $70 price increase was something that was coming and they're like, look, we have to do the $70 price increase because all Activision games are $70 and it might look like we've raised the prices. So not sure if that was a strategy, but it does make sense to me. Could raise prices or degrade Activision content. The idea that they would degrade content is absolutely ridiculous for people who don't use its hardware to access developers' games. Interesting that you would say that the experience would be degraded for people who don't use that hardware. Sony has tons of exclusive content. They have exclusive consoles for Call of Duty. They have exclusive early access to the betas, etc. Stuff like that. We've talked about that before. Now, if Microsoft were to do that, I don't think that's negative. That's what Sony's been doing for years. That's what Xbox did in the 360 days. So if that's an argument, I feel like that's in a strange phrasing, I guess, for lack of a better term. If you can control an important source of content like Activision Blizzard, you have a variety of tools to leverage at your disposal, which could stifle competition, an agency official said earlier this month. I don't know why I screwed up on the word official. What? You still don't own all of the market, right? Like, let's say Xbox gets to 45% or something like that. Sony's still going to have 55% of the market. And I don't think they get there because they're not taking Call of Duty off of the PlayStation console. There was even that story, which I'll put right up here, that they're actually offering Sony the ability to put Call of Duty on PlayStation Plus. They will probably have microtransactions in the game as they currently do. And that's how they make their revenue. And you can still purchase the game outright. So they don't seem to have any concerns about that stuff. So we all know Brad Smith has been challenging the idea of anybody being harmed. And Brad Smith said that Sony has too big a lead in the high performance console space to warrant protection. I kind of agree with that. Sony is very far ahead. And it's a little strange that the FTC and everybody seems to be jumping to defend one company. Nobody else is really coming forward saying we don't want this deal to go through. Nobody else is expressing concerns except for Microsoft's biggest competitor. He further argued that the FTC's case largely hinges on a worry that Microsoft could one day make games from Activision's Call of Duty, which has been a hit among PlayStation users, exclusive to its own Xbox system. Mr. Smith said Sony has about 4 times as many exclusive games on its console today as Microsoft has on its gaming machines. Microsoft has something like 70 exclusives. PlayStation has 259 or something like that. We talked about that a few days ago. They did reach out to Sony for comment on this story too, and Sony said nothing. That's what you can expect from Sony over the next few days, or few months even, before this deal closes. They're not going to say anything. I don't think they're going to be like rallying as much for this case. I think they know at this point that it's not the best look for them, and I think they're going to back way off strategically. That would make sense. They've said what they need to say. I don't feel like they need to fight for it anymore. They've tied up Microsoft enough, and now it's sort of up to the regulators whether or not it goes through. Microsoft said it made a last-minute offer to keep Call of Duty games accessible to others through a legally binding consent decree, augmenting an offer that the company had made months earlier to keep it accessible for at least a decade, 10 years, and the FTC wouldn't even hear from them. It wouldn't even talk to them, right? Which is absolutely bizarre. A hearing would take place in the FTC's administrative court in August unless a resolution is reached before then. After the case is heard, legal experts say it could take months before a decision is handed down, and the losing side can then appeal it with the full commission. If an appeal is filed, the commission reviews the entire record anew and hears oral arguments before deciding to uphold or overturn the administrative law judge's order. At that point, if Microsoft loses, the company can appeal the commission's decision to effect. Oh my God. Long story short, this is an incredibly long case. This is going to be drawn out forever if it goes down that route. I do not think that the FTC wants to go down that route. This is in no way a slam dunk case for the FTC, says Eric Talley, a professor at Columbia Law School. Yeah, no kidding, Eric. I'm glad he's a professor of law. I think anybody that's actually read the documents can tell this is by far a slam dunk case for the FTC. Even if the odds are a little bit long, they're showing they're willing to kick the tires to budge legal precedent a little bit more in their favor. Does he mean the FTC or Microsoft? I don't think there's any way that this goes through. Like, yeah. Well, the litigation is continuing. Microsoft could offer the FTC additional commitments or implement them itself, says Benjamin Sirota, an antitrust attorney with the law firm Cobry and Kim LLP in New York. But to be satisfied, the government would have to enforce those commitments, which take resources and circumstances often change, he said. The agency might also consider how commitments that solve a competition problem now might not work in the future, he added. So with the evolution of cloud gaming and where the industry is going, maybe they feel like, well, anything that they agree to now might not work in the near future. Yeah. The FTC faces hurdles in this case because of its deal's vertical merger status. Yeah, the FTC has a big uphill battle. And one of the lawyers say, with these cases, it's hard to prove consumer harm. He said, it's not two competitors combining, in which case the harm to consumers is typically self-evident. It is a publisher combining with Microsoft. Like, yeah, I don't know. This case just seems, it's still, I still don't understand what case the FTC thinks that they have. The FTC has been clear about its intention to expand the scope of harm beyond a merger's likely impact on consumer prices. Mr. Hope said the agency might be concerned about actions that could indirectly put consumers at risk, he said, such as the misuse of sensitive competitor information by the combined enterprise. That information could give Microsoft a way to keep newcomers in video game distribution from succeeding, which could result in fewer options for consumers, he said. It's all about the network effect. What network effect? Everybody's going to have Call of Duty. What? How? Such as the misuse of sensitive competitor information by the combined enterprise. I mean, that's such a long shot. So they think that Microsoft buying Activision will give them access to sensitive competitor information, but that's nothing that has been outlined in the FTC's case. That information could give Microsoft a way to keep newcomers in video game distribution from succeeding, which could result in fewer options for consumers. That is like, so you think that Activision combining with Microsoft is going to allow Microsoft to take user data and somehow use that data to mess up the distribution methods of games for their competitors? I don't see how that's possible. Microsoft could implement new practices with distribution, and then Sony could adapt to those practices, like once they see what Microsoft's doing, if they chose to. But that seems like a long shot, and I don't remember reading any of that outlined in the FTC's argument. I guess we're just gonna have to wait. Time will tell. That was from Wal Street Journal. Some good updates there on the case, but that is how they believe Microsoft is staffing up to get ready to take on this fight with the FTC. They are going to take it to court, and some of the pitfalls that they may have coming up. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the members for supporting this channel. I really appreciate you doing so. I added all the new names, so unless there's some new ones, by clicking that join button right down there. This video was actually posted a day early. I recorded it on Sunday. So if you remember, you got to watch it already. Thank you for supporting, and I hope you enjoyed your ad-free version of this video. Check out yesterday's video. I also talked about how unions want this. Everybody seems to want this deal to go through, except for Sony and the FTC. The EU and the UK are still looking at it, but they haven't shut it down yet. They took it to a phase 2, and that's where we're at. So check out those videos. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.